Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to my video on how to start an Alpha Legion army in 9th edition 40k. Following the new Chaos Codex, I'm sure many people are finally jumping into the faction now that it seems like it's actually quite strong. And Alpha Legion, I'm sure, we all know is a fan favorite for the memes and for just being in general a very cool legion. So let's get into the video. So why play Alpha Legion? Alpha Legion is the 20th of the legions, a so-called Ghost Legion, masters of duplicity, trickery, subterfuge, and deception. Led by their shadowy Primarch, or rather Primarchs, twins, Alfarius and Omegon, the mysterious legion never reveals itself until it's ready, and its true intentions are known only to their operatives. So let's get into how to collect them on the tabletop. But first, when it comes to buying Warhammer, I want to have a quick, public service announcement. If you've got a local store, make sure to occasionally buy stuff, from hobby supplies to models themselves. Because remember, those are the things that keep your community alive and help introduce people to the hobby who may not have access to buying things online, or just don't want to. But still, we always want to save $1 when we can. But for us Americans, we don't have things like Element Games, as I'm sure you've heard from people like Auspex Tactics. So I recommend eBay. That's where you'll find our version of discount sellers, usually selling for 10 to 15% off. My personal favorite being Flipside Gaming. Now this isn't sponsored, but there is a link in description. If you can't find new in-box models at a discount, look at used. You can find a lot of models for cheap that way, and usually, even if they're damaged, they're not so damaged they're impossible to fix. And if you're okay with third party, go to Wargames Atlantics to buy good cultist models. Their Raumjäger infantry is very good in my opinion. So where to start? In terms of the first steps, I'd say standard legionaries are a good start, as just sort of a basic kit to buy. The Chaos Lord and Terminator armor is another good first pickup if you know you want to run that. And the Combat Patrol is a good start, or after picking up some smaller things like the Chaos Lord. The Combat Patrol does work very well, I think, for all the legions, so I think it's a good place to start with any of them, not just the Alpha Legion. So after that, say you bought the Combat Patrol. I'd personally, at least for Alpha Legion, assemble the Marines in 2 squads, one melee and one with bolt guns. In the melee squad, I recommend giving one of them a knife and a bare head to represent a Balefire Acolyte, which is the squad psyker. I'd also equip one with the Icon of Slaanesh in the same squad. I'd assemble the Havocs with las cannons, and the autocannons are another good pick for the other 2, as it doesn't come with 4 las cannons. I'd also equip the Hellbrute with Plasma Cannon and Thunderhammer. If you don't want the Plasma Cannon, I'd recommend giving it the las cannons. So now is where I'd either get a box of Legionaries or the Chaos Lord and Terminator armor. If you get the box of Legionaries, give one all the fancy bits, your favorite weapons, and you've got a standard Chaos Lord. The Lord and Terminator armor fills the same role and is rather self-explanatory. Of course, playing games along the way to figure out what you like and what you're not as into, for example, if you really like Hellbrutes. Maybe get more of the Walkers, like Defilers or Mauler Fiends. We really like charging into melee, then falling back to let things shoot into the unit you just beat up? Then maybe get Terminators, Chosen, or Possessed, or any other kind of elites. Or if you like blowing your enemies away, get more Havocs. Stuff like that. Play the game and feel out the faction to see what works and what doesn't, and what you like playing and what you don't. Because we all have different tastes. This video is just a loose guide, after all, to help someone who may be nervous about getting into the hobby. So, what about some goalposts? When buying an army, always get what you like, as what's good and what's bad, and what legion is good and what's bad. It changes like the weather, so in the next slide I'm going to show you some goalposts to aim towards, and some buying guides for any aspiring Alfarius or Omegons out there. But generally aim to get 500, 1,000, then 2,000 points in slow chunks, playing with the army to see what works and what doesn't, and remember to experiment with things like special weapons and marks and icons. I'd also recommend, if you have a friend nearby, just buy maybe one squad and an HQ, and play some very small games just to see how the game works if you're new to the game and want to get into Chaos Space Marines. Now, here's 500 points in 2 flavors. Now, the first one's quite simple, the Combat Patrol. If you can buy that, you just get it all in one box, hook, line, and sinker, you're done. But maybe you'd prefer your army a different way. Here's my recommendation, as it gives you 2 tastes of sort of different ways of building your army in one small package. So I get the Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, though if you want, you could go with the Standard Lord. And you can give him any weapons, as I left 10 points free in this list in case you wanted to buy something in. Then for the troops, I just did one legionary squad with either bolt guns or chainswords. And then I include one squad of 5 chosen, made from the other 5 legionaries, and one squad of 5 terminators with accursed weapons. Now, cost using the eBay discount sellers is only $130, so slightly cheaper than the combat patrol. And you actually get a similar amount of plastic, it's just sort of different. Getting one box of Terminators, one standard Marine kit, and one Lord. With the standard build, it's 490 points. And then for a different build, we're going to go into the 1,000 points, where I'd recommend you play a few games and see what you like more, Chosen or Terminators. You could also do this Possessed, but Possessed aren't out at the moment, so I can't recommend buying them, as, well, you can't buy them yet. Now, if you bought the Combat Patrol, I'd recommend following the buying guide last step, as it gives you a nice way to explore the army past your sort of bog standard backbone. If you followed my sort of free-form different, I'd recommend you play around and see what you like between the Chosen or Terminators. For the Terminators, it will dictate one build, Chosen in another. I'll leave some points wiggle room for experiments with, say, heavy weapons or marks in all of these lists, so feel free to experiment. Now here's the 1,000 points Terminator edition. This is a battalion detachment, obviously. For the HQs, we have one Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, one Dark Apostle, one squad of Legionaries with bolt guns, one with chainswords, a Mark of Slanesh, and the Balefire Tome, and one squad of 10, not 5, cultists. Elites, we have the Chaos Terminators with max fists, heavy flamers are optional, and then a Hellbrute with the Mark of Slanesh, las cannon, and rocket launcher. For long-range fire support, with eBay discounts and using Palanite Enforcers as cultists, which look cool but are a bit more expensive, so the price varies depending on what you use for cultists. I said earlier, Wargames Atlantic is a good place to check, though you will have to buy bases, but they're very cheap in bulk. The next kits cost about $180, which, is expensive, but this is unfortunately quite an expensive hobby. However, if you buy secondhand, I'm sure you could find things for cheaper. And then we have 1,000 points for the Chosen Edition. The HQs are the same, the troops much the same as well. And then Elite, I have one squad of 10 Chosen. In the heavy support, I have one Chaos Land Raider. And then using a cheaper variety of cultists, it's about $200. It is, again, expensive, but this is relatively cheap as far as army building goes, as it's an elite force to some extent. And for 2,000 points for Terminators, I recommend going to check out my How to Play Alpha Legion in 9th edition video for the list, as I made a whole list built around buffing Terminators that I think could be quite strong. So I'd recommend checking that out if you really like Terminators like I do, personally. And then here's 2,000 points for Chosen. The list is much the same as the last. I'll only be listing the additions here. I added a 5-man squad of Legionaries, a squad of Slanesh Chosen, one Master of Possession, which I'd recommend just using a normal Sorcerer for, and 2x5 Havocs with las cannons and chains cannons in each squad respectively. And then a Slanesh Hellbrute with las cannon, a hammer, and Mark of Slanesh, and one squad of 5 Raptors for fast-moving objective grabbers. But how about getting all that for a little cheaper? Now, despite needing things like a handful of chainswords, which you can find relatively cheap on the secondhand market or in your local gaming circle, buying 20-man boxes of Horus Heresy Marines can work wonders as bog standard Legionaries and as Chosen. And with discount retailers, they're only $68 to get all your troops and then some. Havocs can be built with heavy and special weapons kits, though las cannons have not been released yet for Horus Heresy. The rotor cannons work quite well as Reaper chain cannons, and are actually what I'm using. In summary, I hope this video helped show some different ways to collect Alpha Legion and ways to go about doing so. I'll be making more videos on how to save money in Warhammer in the very near future. Stay tuned. I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time where I'm going to be painting the Emperor's Children. See ya.